Beneath the freezing waters of the Baltic Sea, where sunlight surrenders to an eternal, murky gloom, a giant sleeps. It lies there, solitary and desolate, buried in black silt in the heavy silence of 8 decades of oblivion. When the world speaks of maritime disasters, the name Titanic is whispered with reverence. Yet lying 45 meters down in these cold depths is a steel tomb, far greater, far more tragic, and 6 times more deadly than that legendary liner. This is the wreck of the MV Wilhelm Gustloff. It was not a nameless merchant vessel, nor a warship designed for glory, but the stage for the single deadliest loss of life in maritime history. On a fateful night in January 1945, 3 torpedoes struck, and over 9,000 souls were swallowed by the ocean in less than an hour. As we descend through the water column, watching the marine snow fall like endless tears, we are traveling back in time, piercing through the fog of history to touch the raw agony of that winter night. Before us lies not just rusting iron, but a place where thousands of dreams were extinguished, where promises were broken, and where a horrifying chapter of humanity remains frozen in time. Before it became this underwater sepulcher, the Wilhelm Gustloff was the shining pride of a regime, a floating palace launched in 1937 as the flagship of the Strength Through Joy program. It was a vessel designed to offer luxury to the working class, a ship without social divisions, where every cabin was equal and the laughter of holidaymakers once echoed through the very corridors that now lie in ruin. It was a symbol of prosperity, a white swan of the Baltic, until the war stripped it of its glory, transforming it first into a hospital and then into a gray floating barracks. By January 1945, the tide of war had turned violently. The Red Army was advancing inexorably toward East Prussia, and a paralyzing fear gripped the civilian population. Operation Hannibal began, the largest naval evacuation in history, as millions flocked to the harbors in a desperate bid for survival. The Gustloff, dormant for years, was awakened for one final mission: to carry refugees to the safety of the West. Designed to carry fewer than 2,000 people, on that day, desperation packed over 10,000 souls onto her decks. They crowded into luxury cabins, filled the empty swimming pool, and huddled in the freezing cargo holds. Women, children, the elderly, and the wounded brought with them their entire lives packed into suitcases. Jewelry, family photos, and a fragile hope for survival, unaware they were stepping onto a massive steel coffin. Outside, the temperature was 18 degrees below zero, and the Baltic was freezing over. But the cold air was nothing compared to the terror lurking beneath the black waves. At noon on January 30th, the Wilhelm Gustloff departed, overloaded, under-escorted, and commanded by 4 captains who could not agree on a course. As night fell, the sea was pitch black. In a fatal attempt to avoid collision with minesweepers, the command was given to activate the ship's navigation lights. In the blackout of total war, the Gustloff suddenly lit up like a beacon in the darkness, and it was seen. Not far away, the Soviet submarine S-13, commanded by Alexander Marinesko, was hunting. He stalked the massive target for 2 hours before firing 3 torpedoes, each painted with a message of vengeance, for the motherland, for the Soviet people, and for Leningrad. The explosions were deafening, tearing open the ship's hull and sealing its fate instantly. The first hit the bow, the second decimated the swimming pool where the naval auxiliary women slept, and the third shattered the engine room, plunging the ship into darkness. What followed was 50 minutes of absolute hell. 10,000 people panicked in the pitch black as the ship listed violently. Staircases collapsed, exits were blocked by the crush of bodies, and those trapped on the lower decks drowned immediately in the rushing torrent. On the upper decks, the situation was no less horrific. The promenade deck was coated in ice, making it impossible to stand, and the frozen davits meant lifeboats could not be lowered. People slid helplessly into the freezing black water, where hypothermia claimed them within minutes. Mothers held their infants high above the waves as their screams faded into the howling wind. It took less than an hour for the Titan to vanish, dragging with it children who never grew up, soldiers weary of war, and the treasures of 1,000 families, all silenced by the sea. Now, 80 years later, we drift through the belly of the beast. The camera reveals the remnants of that chaos. A pocket watch stopped forever at the moment of impact, a gold ring shining defiantly through the mud, and piles of rotting luggage. These artifacts, gold, silver, gemstones, once represented the security of a new life. But here in the deep, they are rendered mean. Thank you for boarding this journey into the past and braving the cold darkness with us. You have witnessed the silence that rests 45 meters beneath the Baltic Sea, a silence that holds the weight of 9,000 souls. Before we return to the surface, I invite you to stay for a few more moments. Close your eyes or simply watch the particles drift in the gloom. Listen to the deep, resonant hum of the ocean, the rhythmic breath of the diving regulators, and the haunting, hollow echo of the currents moving through the steel wreckage. Let this underwater ASMR immerse you in the true atmosphere of the deep, a moment of reflection and peace amidst the tragedy. If this dive into the Wilhelm Gustloff touched you, or if you want to uncover more lost stories hidden in the abyss, please leave a light in the darkness by hitting the like button. Tell us in the comments, which artifact spoke to you the most? Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to secure your ticket for our next expedition. The ocean has many more secrets to tell, and we are just beginning to explore them. Until the next dive.